Okay, so having children is hard, and having children with special needs is even harder. They have a lot of feelings, and it makes it very difficult for us to sort of stay centered. And so I want to propose that the first piece in supporting kids through tantrums and tears is actually connection, for you to feel connected, both to yourself as well as to your community. So we're going to start today with a little bit of connection. So what I'm going to have you do is, in a minute, you're going to find a partner, and you're simply going to share for 2 minutes about why you came to this workshop. What is it about this workshop that's calling you? What's been challenging about tears and tantrums in your household? And the first person is going to speak for 2 minutes, and the other person is just simply going to listen. You're not going to commiserate. You're not going to give advice. You're just going to listen about how hard parenting a child with special needs can be, or the joyful moments that the parent wants to share. Then the timer will go off, and you'll switch roles. So the lead listener will then become the speaker. And then we'll come back to the whole group, and I'll ask for a few examples before we move on. Any questions about that? Great, so go ahead and find a partner. Decide who's going to speak first, and I will set the timer for 2 minutes. Thank you guys so much for being willing to share and being willing to listen. So I'd love to hear just about 3 or 4 things that came up for you around what you want out of this 90 minutes, now 80 minutes that we have together. I'm going to write a few of them on the board. So raise your hand if you want to share, just in a big room. A couple people, yes.
We both said that we hear kids saying, "You just don't understand me. You just don't get it." And that leads.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So do you want to get it? Or you want to deal with how it feels when they say they don't get it, you don't get them?
I want to understand what when I say something to my kids, I feel like I'm being very clear. I feel like this should be able to get better.
Mm-hmm. Right. So this kind of feeling of, are we getting our kids? Okay, great. So getting our kids. We want them to feel like we got them. Okay, or understand them. What else? Yes, sir.
Tantrums in public.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one. Public tantrums. Yeah. I like to call that parenting in public places. What else? Yes, you in the back.
I'm looking for strategies to take back and train my staff for as summer camp.
Okay. So training staff with strategies. Got it. Yes.
How to deal with transitions between anything.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Transitions are one of the hardest things.
Yes. I was kind of talking about how I feel like I need to prevent every situation, but you can't. So maybe prevention versus having them having the coping skills to deal with situations that come up. Because you can't. I don't know.
So kind of that balance between how to prevent the outbursts as well as teaching your child coping skills. Is that right?
Yeah.
Prevention versus coping skills. Great. So that's a perfect place to transition. We're gonna move on for time. So today I want to teach you 2 tools. They come from Hand-in-Hand Parenting. Hand-in-Hand Parenting is a international nonprofit formed by parents, for parents, and it's a wonderful resource for parenting in general. And I would, if you haven't heard of them, I'd highly recommend going to their website, and they have a very vibrant Facebook community as well to help you connect with other parents. So hand-in-hand parenting, and the two tools, hand-in-hand parenting has 5 tools, and they all sort of rely on one another, but today I want to teach you 2 of those tools. One is called, actually we already taught you one of the other ones, which was listening partnerships, kind of snuck that in, which is getting support as a parent, getting listening for the joys and the challenges of parenting. But the tools we're going to go through are going to be stay listening, which I think of as the emotional emergency tool. So that's kind of the the coping skills piece in a way, something that we can do in the moment when our child is having a big tantrum, that can help to lead to more connection and lead to some degree of healing of what is happening underneath and causing that tantrum. The other tool I want to teach you is called play listening. It's using the healing power of laughter to work through big feelings and to connect. 2 of my favorite tools. So I want to start by just how do we understand kids' emotions? I don't know. Can anybody not see the screen? I don't know if the lights are too much. Anybody not see it? Awesome. So this is a kid. She's in the corner. Her tongue is stuck out. She's grumpy. She's misbehaving. She's not. She's having big feelings. So why? Why is she doing this? So I want to start with just like how do we understand our kids' emotions and then the behavior that comes. So no need to be an enlightened parent right now, but just whatever comes to mind. I want to hear a few people shout out, why is she acting like this? What's going on with her? What initially comes to mind when you see a child? Just shout it out.
Frustrated.
Frustrated? Wanting control?
Been told no.
She's been told no. She's not getting what she wants. Not being understood. Maybe she's tired. Yeah, irrational. Overstimulated. Yeah, especially for our kids. Yes. She can't communicate her feelings in a way that really works for us. She is communicating them, but just not in a way that we like. So she's communicating to us that she's disconnected. She's like a cord that's disconnected from her power source. She's disconnected from her sense of kind of wholeness. She's disconnected from her sense of sort of safety and things feeling good in her environment, including her caregivers in that moment. We'll talk about why that happens. So it's an important reframe and a very big paradigm shift to when our kids are acting out to think of it as, oh, they're disconnected right now. They're in pain. I had a kid once punch me in the nose. We were play wrestling, and he just all out of the blue punched me square in the nose. And you know, it's a visceral reaction to get reactive or upset or angry, you know. And I'd been working on hand-in-hand parenting for a while, and it was amazing that in my mind there was that initial adrenaline rush, you know, and the thoughts of, you know, oh my God, how could you do this, da da da, all those things. But then this thought came into my mind, oh, he's in pain. He's in pain, he's disconnected. And so that modulated the way that I responded to him, which then allowed the interaction to proceed in a more healing way. So just that paradigm shift of they're disconnected. So we start with the assumption that kids are actually born knowing how to love, play, and cooperate. That in their essence that they want to cooperate with us, they want to do well, they want to please us. But they have difficult behavior and they have poor decision making when they feel disconnected. And kids that have learning differences, sensory differences, developmental delays, all the things that fall into the realm of special needs, they tend to get disconnected more easily, or they're always a little bit disconnected. And so it's very hard to kind of get them back on track. But the idea is that underneath it, kids really want to cooperate and do well. And when they don't, and when they're acting out, it's because they're feeling in pain, emotional pain, disconnected. So what does that mean to be disconnected? So I like to think of it as their limbic system or emotional brain is hijacking their thinking brain. So we'll talk about what that means. We call that a limbic hijack.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Yes.
Regarding that first item, what age are we talking about when you say kids are born knowing how to love, play, and cooperate? What age would that be?
All ages. So the kids are actually born wanting and having the innate capacity to want to cooperate and please and do well, but that there's challenges that can get in the way given the nature of living on Earth, that you don't always get what you want and you suffer sometimes, right? So I'm not saying that kids are never supposed to be disconnected, and we'll get into that, but that the idea is that we're intelligent beings, children are intelligent beings, even if they have learning differences and special needs, that actually the innate sort of natural ground of being is to want to cooperate with others.
And so I can think in terms of a 1-year-old child, and I can expect that from the child, that he knows how to love, play, and
Right. Yeah, and so when he doesn't, what's getting in his way? It's not that he's a bad kid. So many of us were raised with the idea of if you're not behaving well, it's because you're bad. And so it's a total paradigm shift to turn that on its head and say, oh, wait a minute, it's not when that 1-year-old is hitting their brother or not listening to you or tantruming because they don't want to put their diaper on. It's not because there's anything wrong with them. It's they're disconnected.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Okay, so limbic hijack. What does that mean? So a little bit of brain info. One way that I like to think of the brain is a triune brain model. So the idea of splitting up the brain into 3 parts. So if my hand is my brain, the wrist is the brain stem, which is autonomic nervous function, like heart rate, temperature, sleep and wake, like proprioception and where your body is in space. We call that the reptilian brain. It doesn't really have thoughts, it doesn't really have emotions, it just has reactions. Inside of that, if you go up, inside of the middle of the brain is the limbic system. And the limbic system is the emotional part of the brain. It's the part that we share with mammals. And it processes emotions. So fight, flight, freeze, all feelings, but it doesn't have words. It just has emotions. Overlaid on top of that is the cortex. This is the thinking part of the brain. It's the part of the brain that literally has an organ that processes words and that it delivers words. There's 2 different parts of the brain, one that receives words, one that processes. That's on the cortex. It's the frontal lobe, which deals with executive function, which is the ability to plan, to sequence. This comes, then that, then that. The ability to plan, if I do this, this will happen. The ability to control impulses. If I hit my brother, they will cry, I will get in trouble. Do I want to do that? In all children, the neocortex is continuing to develop until about 20, 25 years old. Kids with special needs tend to have more executive function challenges, meaning more challenges with impulse control, that it can take longer to come online, or words can take longer to come online, or not at all. The important piece to remember here is that the limbic system does not have words. The neocortex has words. The limbic system does not. So sometimes we can connect our emotions to words and what we're feeling, and sometimes we're just freaking out as a kid or as a parent, right? You're just in limbic hijack. So the limbic system, this is I kind of colored in the limbic system for you in there. So when a child has a big upset over something, it's like all of the blood and attention and awareness goes to the limbic system. And we think of it as Dan Siegel talks about flipping your lid. So it's like if this is your brain, then you flip your lid, and which means you're not really having as much access to the parts of the brain that deal with words, that have impulse control, that have executive function, which maybe you're challenged with in the first place. But if you have a big upset, the lid is flipped and you have limbic hijack. So what the limbic system does is it sends a big alarm. Something's wrong, something's not safe. That's the limbic system's job. And it's fully developed in utero. Some people say at least by birth, but in utero. Whereas the outer part of the brain can take up to decades to develop. So when there's a big upset, even if it was caused by something minor, the limbic system is signaling danger, alarm, alarm. There's what we call limbic system overload. Some people call it flooding. It leads to unreasonable behavior because the reasoning part of the brain is not being accessed. The part of the brain that reasons, if this then that, is not connected in the same way. All of the attention is going into, am I safe? Am I safe? We think of it as an emotional emergency. It might not be a real emergency, but to the child inside, it feels like an emotional emergency. So the limbic system, its job is to constantly scan for danger. Listening to kids when they have big feelings helps them heal the emotional hurt so they can feel connected again. That's the basic idea of stay listening. So we'll go over that more. So when your child's having a big upset, connection comes first, then thinking can follow, depending on the level of upset. If a child is just a little bit upset, their lid is just a little bit flipped, you might be able to reason with them a little bit to get them sort of more contained. But if not, if they're just, totally unreasonable, then you bringing your connection to them is going to allow them to do the emotional healing process, which I'll talk about in a moment, which then will allow them to think again and make better decisions. Okay, so I want to just say that kids need loving limits to move through stuck feelings and get connected. So usually big tantrums and emotions come up when we set some sort of limit. And so the idea here, the reframe here, is that when we set that limit, no, you can't do this, there's some stuck feeling underneath. And you setting that limit, as well as providing your connection, like in this picture, the mom is, and the dad, they're, holding a hand, they're eye to eye, their bodies are calm, they're offering warmth. That allows the child to release the stuck feelings and come back to reconnection. So the adult's job is not to necessarily help a child avoid tantrums, but rather to set healthy limits and hold space for the big stuck feelings that bubble out.
What do you mean by loving limits?
Good question. So a loving limit would be something like, I can't let you have this cookie before bed. I can't let you hit me, honey. So you're using your body language, your tone of voice, and your words to communicate the limit, which is the thing that they're not allowed to do, and also to communicate your care and your love. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question. So how, pretty much when you were showing that the children were connecting with the adults that were looking at them, we have trouble getting the eye-to-eye contact.
Yes.
What do we do to get to that point?
Yeah, so how to get the eye contact. So when you connect eye to eye with another person, it's very, very vulnerable. And when you're looking in someone's eyes, you feel what you're feeling a lot more. So my belief is that part of the reason that kids with sensory, social, and learning differences avoid eye contact is because they're feeling a lot. And it's too much to process. They're already in limbic overload just by trying to look in the eye. Now that doesn't mean that you avoid the eye contact, right? You want to sort of touch the painful place and then allow the pain to come out. So what that might look like is you actually seek their eye contact. So you move your head and your body to get their eyes. But it's like an invitation. It's like you make that invitation, you use your body to sort of make it possible for them, and you can play games around it, like, oh, I see you, oh, don't look at me, right? We'll get into that. That's play listening, to work on the feelings of how it can be scary to have eye contact. But you sort of use your own body and your eyes to make an invitation, but don't force. Yeah, because it might just be overwhelming. For some kids, just being like in the corner of the room while they're upset, that's enough contact. If you try and take a step close to them, they're gonna get overloaded. They're gonna get flooded, limbic hijacked.
When would you call the cops if your son hasn't stopped hitting you over and over after you set the boundaries of not hitting mom? When do you call?
How old is your son?
5.
Well,
he hasn't stopped like over and over and over, and I set the boundaries. You're not supposed to hit me. You're not supposed to hit mom. You're not supposed to hit your fellow, your kid.
Yeah. That's a hard one. So I wouldn't. Yeah. Oh yeah. Thank you. So she said, may I repeat it? So she said, when would you call the cops if your child is continuing to hit and not listen? And she said her child's 5. Did I miss anything? Okay. So kids' jobs are actually to just feel. And we'll get into this more. Just to feel what they feel. Their cortex, their ability to control those impulses, is still developing. There's different ways we can develop that, help them to develop that. One way is with this tool, stay listening. And so continuing to provide the limit where you actually, if your kid is coming to hit you, you actually, put your hands up, protect yourself. Sometimes I'll get like a couch cushion. And just continue to, I can't let you hit me. I have to keep myself safe. I love you. Kids also need to laugh about it. So there's ways we can kind of turn that into, sometimes you can turn it into a way where they can release their feelings through laughter. So you get a big couch cushion and they're hitting, and then you mock fall over. And then they laugh and laugh and laugh about how powerful they get to feel for once, and then suddenly they're not in limbic hijack as much anymore. But it's not like you do this once and then it's changed. It can take lots and lots of time, and getting lots and lots of support for yourself. Okay, because it's the exhaustion and the hopelessness at times can be overwhelming, and it accumulates. Yeah. Thank you for that. Okay. So how kids get disconnected. So why do they go into these moments where they're hitting or tantruming? So it's when their moment and when their mind is signaling danger, and either we're not able to pay attention or they can't take our attention in because they're in what we call mind freeze, because the limbic system has frozen their mind. So it's the attention that allows them to feel connected and safe. So as an infant, if the phone rings, that can be, and you go and you leave your infant and you go pick up the phone, there's nothing wrong with that. But to the infant, that there can be a subtle signal of danger. Oh my gosh, my caregiver is away from me. I'm helpless. I'm not going to have anyone to feed me or take care of me. And this isn't verbal. it's in the limbic system. It's pre-verbal. It's a way that you know, the infant in ancient times would survive. You get scared, you have an emotional upset, and then the tribe hears you and comes back to you, right? And so their mind is signaling that there's danger. And we can't pay attention. It can also be something ordinary, reminds them of something difficult in the past. There could be strange associated memories. So if your child was, you know, had a difficult time in childbirth, and maybe was in the NICU, or was, you know, had to be poked by needles, or continues to have to be, there could be little reminders that like smelling something in particular, or seeing a particular color that will bring their mind back to that moment inside of their body, and they feel afraid again. And we oftentimes can't discern what those connections necessarily are, but knowing that there's something that's reminding them of some hurt that they experienced in the past, some loss, if they lost a parent, or they, you know, lost an animal, or you know, the hurt of challenges early in life. So this is how kids get disconnected.
A quick question, what age range are we talking about?
All age ranges. My 94-year-old grandmother, when she was dying, talked about her difficult experiences being locked in a closet in first grade. We carry these things with us. In utero, there can be difficult experiences, and the body remembers. The brain, the sort of the verbal brain might not, but we carry these things within us throughout all of life. And this is why that emotional offloading, both for kids as well as for adults, you know, having a space where you can just kind of let it all out and have your tantrums and talk about your fears and shake about your fears and cry about the difficulties now and also the things they remind you of in your past, frees up your mind to be clearer for when your children are having their emotional moments. And they'll stimulate us, they'll re-stimulate us, because the only other time that we have had a parent-child relationship is when we were a child. So the same parts of our brain and body get stimulated with our kids as when we were a child. So if we had a difficult experience at the age of 8, suddenly when our child is 8, we're feeling really reactive and we're not really sure why. And oftentimes that there is this, you know, emotional re-stimulation. So all ages. Yeah. Okay, so here's a picture of some kids playing soccer. They're running, their arms are touching each other, they're competing for the ball, they're smiling, doesn't look to me like they're pushing, their body language looks like it's in a play stance as opposed to an aggressive stance. So what is happening for these kids? They're using what I call whole brain thinking. So they're connected, they're feeling connected to their whole brain. They're feeling safe and loved. Maybe their parents are watching them, or maybe they just have the feeling inside of themselves that they are safe and loved. And some kids come into the world with the ability to take in safety and love more than others. So there can be a temperament piece of kids coming into the world where it's harder for them to fill up their cup of self-esteem. But these particular kids, at this moment, their cup is filled, they're feeling safe and loved, which allows them to also feel powerful and capable. They're not feeling insecure, they're not feeling like they're not good enough, they're not as good as the other kids, so they don't have to compete as hard because they're not trying to prove anything to themselves. They're feeling powerful and capable, which children need desperately. They're able to have flexible thinking because of this. They're able to think on a dime, they're able to cooperate, they're able to share the ball, to take turns. And they're able to problem solve small problems that come up. Contrast that with this little girl who's pulling another girl's hair. What's going on with her? Why is she doing that? We think of that as again, that's a mind freeze. Maybe she's the same kid who a moment ago was playing soccer well. Why is she doing this? Is she suddenly a brat? Her parents didn't teach her well? What's going on, right? her mind signaled danger because of some real or imagined threat. It could be even a territory. You know, this is my area I want to play with. These are my toys. These are my friends. So there's some threat that her mind signaled, or something reminded her of a difficulty in the past, or you know, some struggle that she's been dealing with socially or at home, or just the changes in the body and her brain kind of bubbled up and spilled over, and her mind went into limbic hijack, and that caused her to act out. Her mind is frozen, mind freeze. So we think of it as disconnection. When a child is disconnected, like that moment, the girl pulling hair, she's feeling disconnected, leads to what we think of as broken thinking, which results in difficult behaviors and feelings. So broken thinking is an important concept here. And I want to give the analogy of somebody with a hurt ankle. So imagine that you are coming up the stairs, maybe it was here, you're coming up the stairs, you're late, you want to make sure you get a spot, but the person up the stairs in front of you is going really slow, and you're feeling incredibly frustrated. Right? Maybe you start making up stories about them, or you start going off on them in your mind. But if you knew, maybe you suddenly see out of the corner of your eye that they have a cast on, or a boot, their ankle was hurt. You think, oh, okay, their ankle's broken. I'm going to be, your response is going to be completely different. You might still be a little frustrated because you want to get to where you want to go, but it'll feel completely different. Their ankle is broken. Okay, so I'm going to just be patient and let myself be late and let it be what it is, accept that the ankle is broken, this person who's in front of me. Or you might help. Maybe you see they're carrying a lot of bags and you offer a hand. Hey, can I help you? So when children are having mind freeze and limbic hijack, you can think of it as their thinking is broken. Again, they flipped their lid. So they're literally, the thinking part of the brain is kind of broken in that moment. You may or may not agree about why that happened or think that it is legitimate, but the fact of the matter is their thinking is broken in that moment. And so if you think that your child's thinking is broken, you're going to respond to them differently. You're going to respond to them from a place of compassion and wanting to help, or patience. So if, when your child has difficult behaviors and feelings, you think to yourself, okay, their thinking is broken, if the next thing that happens is you offer connection, warmth, and safety, that's the next arrow, then what will happen next is the healing process, which is tears and tantrums. We'll talk about that in a moment. Which then, if we continue to offer our warmth and safety while they're going through their tears and their tantrums, we continue to offer our warmth and safety. We continue to say, I can't let you hit me and I love you. That leads to them thinking well again. It leads to them coming back online. So I call this the human condition, that we're not supposed to save our kids from disconnection. This is just the human condition. We get disconnected, we feel bad, we don't think right, our thinking is broken. If we then get some connection and warmth and safety, then we can offload our feelings and come back to thinking well again. This is just the human condition and how it cycles. Now, if you respond to the broken thinking with your own broken thinking because you're overwhelmed and frustrated, again, you're not a bad parent, right? Just like you're not a bad kid, but you're disconnected and you're needing some support, and that's okay. Parenting is hard, so go get your support. Yes?
I have a question. You know, I have a child on the spectrum, ABA theory is basically when they're having a tantrum, you kind of walk away and
Yep.
ease into it. And I've tried this theory of like this, like I have this exact moment yesterday with connection, trying to break it. Just because balancing and just kept it going. And I switched to ABA where I did walk away and kind of stopped it. And it turns said, you can't do this, mommy's going to leave now. So, I mean, how does, I mean, that's what I was caveat, where does it always work to be like holding their hand and just like, you know.
Yeah, this is a really good question. I'm so glad that you brought this up. So this is one tool. I don't think as parents you should ever only have one tool. You need to have a whole bag of tools that you use when it works for you in the moment. Sometimes we need our child to put their feelings back in a box, and I don't mean that judgmentally. You know, we do. If we never put our feelings back on the box and we're just yelling at people, you know, at Starbucks or in the car, like, that would not be good. We need to sometimes rail it in, but we also need to have times where we let it out, right? And so sometimes, you know, use ABA to, you know, to stop the feelings and stop the behavior. This is different. This is more of a letting them out, letting the child feel that their hurts can come out and the emotional healing process can happen. So where this comes from is Peter Levine did some work on trauma. He wrote several books, but one called Waking the Tiger. And in it, he talks about studying animals in the wild. And he studied prey animals, like the gazelle. And he found that when the gazelle was being chased by a lion, if it was not caught, then it would come into a circle of other gazelles and it would shake. And it would basically shake off the fear. And he looked at this in lots of different animals. And so the human correlation is that when we are feeling threatened in some way, our brain actually needs to let it out, and the way that we let it out is through heat, through the body heating up. So with anger, does that. Through tears, so crying. So tears actually have cortisol in them, the stress hormone. If any of you have ever had a tough moment and had a big cry, you feel better afterwards. You might feel more tired, but you also feel kind of lighter, and that's because tears literally wash your body out of stress. If your child is having a difficult moment and you're studying the limit and you see their jaw shaking, that's that similar thing of the gazelle shaking. Their body is doing the healing process of letting out the fear. And it can come out in laughter is also another way that the body releases feelings. So stay listening is not about stopping the feelings, it's about allowing them so that the brain and body can actually heal and get to the other side of it. Sometimes a stay listening session is like 5 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour. And you got to do what works for you. And not just use one tool. It would be lopsided if we only used one tool.
Dave, when you go through some of the tools, this seems like it's a great concept that you just mentioned, that we need a lot of bags of tools or a bag full of tools. If a lot of our kids with special needs have some verbal challenges. This seems very highly verbal at times, and I've tried with my son, where if I'm talking at him too much, I know it's like, I'm feeling, like even when I'm ticked off, I can't hear what the person is thinking. I know that he's feeling the same way.
Yeah.
So previous professionals have taught me to just model what I want him to do. So if it's breathing techniques or whatever. But he's 7, he gets what I'm doing. He's like, no breathing, I know what you're doing. He's like, stop. You know? What do you do when it's like, okay, I'm going to take away the language to try to have you visually see what I want you to do. They're smart enough to figure out what you're trying to get them to do. They're like, no, I'm not having this right now. What else?
Yeah, so good question. So this is actually the most nonverbal technique. So what this tool is really you're listening to your child's feelings, and that doesn't mean your kid is going to say, I'm mad because you da-da-da-da-da. They're going to show you their feelings through hitting, trying to run away, throwing themselves on the floor, crying, grabbing things. And what you want to do is you want to invite those feelings in. You want to listen. So this idea with stay listening is enough. You don't have to fix it. You don't have to change it. You don't have to teach them anything. You can do that other times. But sometimes just listen to your kid's feeling without trying to change it. Now what you do want to do is offer your presence and your warmth. So this is in this picture, I love this picture because this mom is holding what looks like her tantruming toddler, and his eyes are squinted and his face is red, and it looks like he might be trying to scratch her, and she's deep breathing to calm her body, or doing whatever she's doing to get her body calm. I don't see a lot of tension in her body. She's doing what she needs to keep her body calm. Doesn't mean she's not feeling a lot, but she's staying calm. She's offering him her eyes. He's not ready for it. See, his eyes are closed. He's not ready for it, but she's offering them, and she's keeping it safe. She's holding him close, but far enough that his hands are not going to hurt her. So this is listening, this kind of listening. So you're offering your presence and your warmth. You let their body do the important work of offloading tensions through the crying, through the body heating up, through the trembling, through the pushing on things. That's their job. Our job is to offer our warmth and presence and keep it safe. Yes.
As you said, try, instead of trying to avoid the situation, but like if my child has a trigger of something, we had a problem with someone wearing a mask, and I just had to take her out of the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So should you be working through it in the middle of the environment, or just literally take her out of it and then work through it?
Right. So this is a very personal decision. How are you feeling in that moment? Are you feeling resourced enough to hold space for your kid while they're in public, as you had brought up, tantrums in public places? I have sat with kids on the floor holding them, and they're in a park and they're screaming, "You're hurting me, you're hurting me." I'm just holding them gently, but they're feeling some hurt. They're feeling some hurt, and so they're yelling, "I'm hurting you, you're hurting me, you're hurting me." Now in that moment, I felt secure enough to work with the thought, the fearful thought, "Oh my God, someone's going to call CPS, people are looking at me." Other moments I might have not been able to handle it, and so or I think it's going to be too much for them. They've already had an emotional day. Let's remove them from the environment and calm it down. But what you'd want to do is over time, start to work on that trigger. Now, stay listening is one way where you take little steps towards it. So Patty Whiffler, who's the founder of Hand in Hand Parenting, in her book called Listen, she talks about giving her 2-year-old eye drops. And so her 2-year-old got pink eye, and he was terrified of the eye drops, just absolutely terrified. And she couldn't imagine having to hold him down and squeeze the eye drops in. Like, she's just like, I don't have it in me. And so she sort of developed this tool this was like 40 years ago, by, one day when her little one was asleep, she took her 2-year-old and she just showed the eye drops. So showed the trigger. We have to do the eye drops. Just showed it a little bit. And then, "No, I don't want to." And he would start to cry, and she would listen. She'd offer her warmth and presence, just quiet listening. And then when the tears settled down, show it again. We have to do the eye drops. And then big tantrum again. She said this went on for, I think she said it was 2 hours, but maybe less. Yeah, and some things are like that. But at the end of that, because she happened to be resourced that day, she had a lot of listening time herself, and had the resources to do this emotional project with her child. And at the end of that 2 hours, the child said, "I do it." She was like, "Okay, I would have never thought of that. I would have never thought you doing it. You're coming up with this idea to solve the problem that I would have never thought of." Child puts the drops in his eyes, walks off, never a problem again. Did it again, right? And so, he was able to do it himself, and got maybe like 1 out of 10 drops in the eye, but it's good enough. So with getting closer and closer to that feared thing, and then letting the feelings out while you're sort of listening, can allow that fear to move out. Yeah.
Excuse me, so what criteria do you use to determine that listening is enough? And when do you need to go beyond that, or use something else?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's, again, very personal. I think that people just need a good listening to, for the most part. And if we listen to kids, then something will emerge that we wouldn't have thought of. But we also have to get our own listening time, and that allows us to think of other solutions. So you have someone who you talk to and they listen, just like we did in the beginning of this workshop, and you'll get new ideas. Okay, maybe we should try this, or maybe we should try this other idea. Like parenting is an art, not a science.
Right.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, in the back, and then we're going to move to the next one.
Well done, Joel. When I find I stay listening, Tuesday, you're not talking to me. Why are you talking to me?
Yeah, exactly. And are you talking?
Well, I say, well, I'm kind of listening to you. You're not listening. You're not listening. When I try to listen to you, you're not talking to me. And you get more upset. And
Yeah. Exactly. So okay, so I want to give some analogies for what's happening. That's a great example. So as you're listening, your child's going through the healing process. Now you have to look, are you listening with your whole body? Are you talking so that you feel like you're listening? It's very hard because we actually don't think, if you look within, I would bet you don't think that you are enough. I have found this. If I just sit and listen to my kid, how is that enough? How is my attention enough? I must have to say something. I must have to do something. I must have to teach them, right? Because as a parent, and especially as a parent with a child with special needs, you have so many hats that you put on. So how could your listening be enough? Just your calm, kind presence. So when you are able to listen to your child in that way, what happens is they begin to do the emotional healing process. So yelling, "You're not listening to me." It might be he's cluing you in like you're talking too much, which we do sometimes to prove that we're enough. But it may also just be that this is his way of clearing out those bad feelings. So I think of it as like, an emotional poop. So when a child is constipated with bad feelings, they have a big upset, and it's like having an emotional poop. It comes out. You're not listening to me crying, screaming. You're listening. You're keeping it safe as long as you're able to. You're offering your warmth. And after some time, it settles down, and then they're off to the next thing. It's like it never happened. It's like it never happened, because what's happening is the same as, as like an actual physical poop. It's just there's something constipated that comes out. It's done. So another thing that you can think of that's happening is it's like a nap. Like when kids are having all these tears and this tantrum, the mind and the brain is doing very important work to integrate, but it's invisible. In the same way that when a child's napping, you might say, what are they doing? There's nothing important happening. But we know from neuroscience that there's a great deal happening in the brain. So when the child is screaming, "You're not listening to me, you're not doing it right, I want this," and being upset, there's actually important emotional work happening, so long as you can sort of trust the process and keep it safe. And it's not easy. This is a total, I know I'm like, the way I'm talking about it may sound like it's easy. It's not easy. This is very challenging, but very, very worth it. And in my own personal experience and with so many families that I've worked with. And this is, again, just one tool to use. The other analogy is like midwifing in childbirth. When a woman is having a baby, you can't take away her pain. You maybe can numb it, but you can't actually take the pain away. But what you can do is you can offer your presence, you can offer your warmth, you can make sure she feels safe. She may not feel comfortable. She might say things that she later regrets. But she's birthing something. She's birthing as a human being. So when kids are having these tantrums, it's like something is, it's like you're the midwife for their emotion that's coming out, and you just holding safety and presence can help. So, we're going to talk about play listening in a moment, but I want to see if there's any other questions in particular about ways that your children tend to tantrum or how their feelings come out. Yes?
My child, if he's not tantrum, he's completely quiet and just stays in one place, does not want to do anything, especially on a playground or something. he lays down, saying nothing, doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to move on to anything else. No screaming, but just doesn't want to do anything.
So his tantrum when it's time to leave the playground, is that what you're saying?
He just quiets. I mean, doesn't want to leave the playground, doesn't want to leave the place where he's at, and just stays quiet.
So he'll just lay down on the ground and get quiet. And what do you do?
Try to talk to him, try to physically pick him up, and that's when he starts screaming.
That's when he starts to scream.
Yes.
And then what happens?
Then I put him back, and I just wait until he gets out of it.
And how long does that take?
It would take an hour.
Yeah. So there is, you could definitely do that. That's not a wrong way to do it. But if you want to try this tool, if you want to try helping him work on the feelings that are getting in the way of leaving, the point when you start to, one way would be that when you're using stay listening, the part where you start to pick him up and he screams, see if you can offer your, don't stop the screaming, but just kind of listen with your whole body and make sure he's not, hold him far enough away that he's not hitting you. And get your own support around how embarrassing and challenging that will be, and decide that you don't have to do it either, right? You can also play it at home, so playing that, we're at the park and now we're going to leave, and what would happen there? Yeah, so we'll go into more about how to play about it. But so you can just slowly get closer and closer to the thing that stimulates those stuck feelings. So let this screaming happen until you just can't tolerate it anymore, and then let him go. And then when you can again, pick him up and just listen. Yeah, I would be mad too. And sometimes I'll say things, but they're more for my benefit than the child's. Like, I get it. I would be upset too. This is a really smart thing to be mad about, because that helps us to remember that they're working through something important themselves. Yeah. Thank you. Yes.
I'm when he's been really mad, he takes his pants off.
Uh-huh.
He does that so much.
Uh-huh.
Other times, it's like he'll say, he'll ask for attention, and I try to give it to me, but
Yeah. Uh-huh.
and the other things like those sort of things, watch the reaction.
Uh-huh.
He did answer with toothbrushes. I try to ignore that behavior, and I wait for him to calm down, and then I'll take it there and let you get to figure it out. And I'll be really stern in that. So I'm not, I think when my son was first diagnosed, I was always walk away. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
But now I've gotten that wrong way.
Great.
It's stuff now.
Go ahead.
And I'll take I'll just sit with him and tell you what to do.
Great.
So that he knows next time and he's not going to put up with it.
Yeah.
And that seems better.
Yeah.
But that's at home, but if you're at public, hands off.
Uh-huh.
Embarrassed. So
Yeah.
hands off. Everyone's staring at you. One time the husband like, let me do it. And scream it out. And we were at a park and thankfully not in the store. So we did, and then it calmed down, and then I walked up to him and said, it's time to put your pants on.
Good job.
And then he did. I think he's that doesn't he's 4 and 5 now. So he's not doing it for the piano. But he's really mad, he'll go with the piano. He knows that.
Yeah.
He's not doing that. I know he does.
Yeah. Yeah, so to me it sounds like you're using a version of this tool. So being really firm is a part of it. So being loving doesn't mean that you're not firm. Just a moment with you. It is important to have your mom voice, but to still try to emanate your care and your warmth, right? And I see a lot of parents that they were raised in abusive or semi-abusive households, and so they don't want to be like that, which is great. It's admirable, but there's this way that parents have kind of, in some ways lost their power or their voice around how to say no because they're afraid of hurting their kids, which is coming from a really, really great place. and there's something lost. There's something that gets lost in that. And so something I teach parents is like how to go ahead and say no, because sometimes when you have that sternness, you're reminded of all the hurts that you had as a child, and that feels too scary. So having that firm, I need you to pick it up now, and then waiting, right? And then if he cries in tantrums, as you said, cry it out. That could be another way to think of it. You know, you're letting him have his healing process, and you're just listening and sort of waiting and staying more or less regulated yourself. And then at some point, he puts his pants on. So yeah, moving closer and closer to the pants on. Okay. Yes, back there.
My kids, usually they really want something really badly, like candy, and I already said that no, it's not time for it right now. So, and then she starts to yell, and I want to cry and all of that. So, in that case, what I do, I just say, I want to stop talking. So, and I don't offer my, as a dad, like, I really, I'm not there when she should stop. So what is the difference of offering your care that you care about, and what is it? Because I feel that ignoring that behavior does happen in those situations that I have a lot. So, is that like you just know what to do? Like what, that in those situations they are different from what you're saying about, I feel that I don't present my support. Maybe that's what I need to do, like in other situations. Not that she's like, I want it, and I can't even be close to her when she's like that.
Can I ask you what comes up for you when you're close to her and she's having that big tantrum?
I just feel like leaving her. I just don't want to hear it.
Yeah, she's neurotypical.
Yes. Yeah. This is the
Yeah. So what I'll say about that is that I know almost nobody, no adult almost, that had their feelings listened to as a child, or even as an adult. When we kind of lose it, who listens to us? And so we don't have like the schema or the neurology yet. We have to grow it. We have to grow this new way of being where we can be with our kids when they're having a big, huge feeling, as well as be with our feelings. Part of that will be that our feelings when we were a kid and we had a tantrum and we weren't not listened to, or we were told to shut up, or we were told I'll give you something to cry about, or worse, right? All of that comes up. All of our pain comes up, and we want to get away from that. Or that's what we were taught as a kid. If you're having a tantrum, go in the other room and be with yourself. Now, it's not going to be damaging per se to have her deal with her feeling on her own, but it's not going to teach her that it's okay to be her full self in connection with another person. And this is where I think that the parenting as a path to personal transformation comes in. Because as you start to be able to listen to your kids' feelings and be with all the feelings that are coming up for you, something gets healed inside of you as well. And then your child will learn, just because I have this big feeling doesn't mean I'm bad, because mommy's still here. Mommy's still here and listens and loves me, and maybe she needs to take a time out because she's having a big feeling right now. Modeling that if you need, modeling what you need. But trying to work on this time in. No one should have, things we'll say is no one should have to be alone with these feelings. No one should have to be alone with that hurt. There's a really wonderful article on the Hand in Hand Parenting website. If you go to handinhandparenting.org and then you put in the search criteria, what to say during stay listening, it gives a really wonderful description of this tool and and things that you can actually say, things that parents can say.
On the flip side of that, though, I think no means no in those situations. If the kid is screaming about getting another candy, and it's not time for that, I hear you with the, but I think that doesn't mean that I'm going to give it to you.
Correct.
Okay,
Correct.
so that still means no.
Correct. Very good distinction. Listening doesn't mean that you then do what they want. You still hold the limit. Remember that slide early on? That the job of parenting is to hold limits and to hold space for the feelings that come up. So I want to move on to the next tool. We have only about 20 minutes left. So play listening. Play listening is a way that we can use laughter to heal disconnection and emotional hurts. So what it is, it's a playful role reversal that puts the child in charge of the relationship for a limited period of time. Kids are not in charge of pretty much anything in their lives. And not that they should be, but it still doesn't feel good to them. They feel a sense of helplessness, powerlessness. If they have a learning difference, even more so. It's like they're looking at all the other kids and maybe they're 3-4 years older, but they don't take that into account that they can do the monkey bars and they can do math and they can use their words, and how come everyone's better than I am? You know, there's this feeling of powerlessness that kids are kind of always fighting against. And so a good way to sort of bolster their self-esteem so that we prevent some of those big feelings, so that they are more filled up emotionally and more resilient, is to give them periods where they are totally in control. Now that can be something like letting them choose the vegetable for dinner or an article of clothing, but that's not play listening. What I'm talking about in play listening is putting them in charge in a playful way where they're the boss and you're the one that is inept and can't do it and not smart enough and not strong enough, in a funny way that makes them laugh. Okay, so this can allow children to resolve difficult issues through laughter, and it can be very healing for us because we get to laugh with our kids about something that is hard and upsetting to us. So you can work on specific things too with this, like fear of strangers, fear of confinement in the car seat, the tendency to be aggressive towards other children. You can actually have play listening projects, and I'll talk about how we do that in just a minute. So how do we do that? How do we do play listening? Parents create distinct play periods during which the child has the upper hand in the play he has chosen. So the child is choosing the play. It may just be you're hanging out, playing with them in whatever way that they play. Maybe they're just lining up blocks, or they're looking at a book, or anything at all, anything that they're wanting to do. And then you decide that for a little while you're going to switch the roles, and you're going to just give your child the upper hand in any possible way that you can, so that they're smarter, they're funnier, they're stronger than you. And you're kind of playing the jester in a way, playing the fool. And what you want to do is go for the laughter. And this can be an art in and of itself. It's like, what can I do that will get my child to crack a smile? Especially when kids have a lot of balled up feelings. It can be hard to get them to laugh. And this is not with tickling. We don't use tickling because tickling can be another way that we can, not meaning to, but kids can feel disempowered because they, again, can feel real helpless. Some children will ask for tickling because they're sensory seekers. That is okay as long as you're really attuning to when they want to stop and when they don't, that they're the one in charge. But when kids have had a lot of difficulties in their life, it can be hard to find the place of laughter, so you just have to do experiments to see what is it that you will do that make your kid laugh. Is it falling on the floor ridiculously? Is it putting something silly on your plate for dinner and letting them laugh about it? What is it for you? You give them. You're going to take the less powerful role. So I want to share just a few quotes about the benefits that imaginative play has for kids and for families. So when you're putting yourself in the less powerful role, it's a type of imaginary play. if it can be in a fantasy pretend play as well, like you're playing horses or parent-child, but they're the parent and you're the kid, or student-teacher and they're the teacher. That's a more obvious way of doing fantasy imaginative play, but anything where you're pretending to be something other than you are is a type of imaginary play. Now, some of the benefits that research has shown of this type of dramatic play is that it enhances language development. It fosters symbolic thought and abstraction, so the ability to abstract important information, and creative imagination, which is really important in problem solving. When kids get really rigid and stuck on something, I only want this one thing for dinner, I only want to play this one way, you could think of it in a way as a lack of creative imagination, because they haven't been able to sort of have that flow of imagination about that issue. And so playing in this way can help with imagination and problem solving. It's also been found that parents playing in this way with kids can help them work through difficult issues in the same way that a play therapist might. So if the child has had any kind of traumatic event, to encourage dramatic play about that event by providing toys or props along with your participation and loving attention. So what that might look like in the playful role reversal, if your child has had a lot of challenges in hospitals, you get a doctor set, provide it. They might take it, they might not, but if they do, then you're really sick or you're really scared of the shot, and let them be the one who's in charge, chasing you around the house with the mock needle, and you being terrified and then falling down and letting them get you, letting them tackle you, or maybe if they're a more timid child, it might be that they soothe you. It's okay, mommy. It's okay, daddy. It's okay. It'll be fine. That's teaching them their own internal self-talk for things that are scary to them. Playing cards is great, letting them win, but just by a hair. You want to give kids, and not always, I'm not saying always, but during these times of play listening where you want to bolster your child's self-esteem and bolster their feeling of confidence, you match their strength, you match their cognitive ability, and then you let yourself lose just by a hair, so they get to feel that they are smart and powerful and clever. You don't notice in a playful way that they cheated. Oh, how do you all of a sudden have all the rainbow cards in Uno? That's so weird. I'm really bad at this game. You're good at this game. This can be hard to do for parents. I found it hard myself because we have to work through the feelings of powerlessness and lack of control that it brings up in us. I had a kid once who she was always stepping on, she was in first grade, she was always stepping on the client. She was always stepping on kids' hands in class and then denying that she did it. I didn't do it, and it was obvious that she did. And so for a long time I used kind of a CBT model. I was trained originally in cognitive behavior therapy and ABA and consequences and that kind of thing. And so at first I would sort of provide natural emotional consequences. So we would be in my office playing baseball, and pretend baseball, and she would inevitably win, and I would say, oh, it makes me sad that I don't get to win, or no, I really did get that base, and that just didn't work. It didn't work. But once I learned play listening, and I let myself constantly lose and be ridiculous about it, and okay, I'm going to do 10 push-ups, and I'm going to meditate, and now I'm for sure going to win. I'm for sure going to win. And I'd run as hard as I pretend could, and then slip at the last minute, and it was hard because I had to get a lot of listening myself about it, because I was like, this kid's controlling me, and it's no fun to play with her, and is it even helping? Am I just teaching her that it's okay to be the one in control? I had to work through a lot of my feelings about it. But in working through my feelings about it and allowing her to constantly win, over time, she started to shift on her own. She started to give me 1 point, and then if I noticed it, she'd wipe it away. And then she'd start to give me a point, but let me notice it, and then 2 points. And then over time, we both had equal points. And then she didn't want to play competitive games anymore, and she wasn't stepping on the kids' hands at school anymore. So I've seen this paradoxical tool really work. Yeah, so playful role reversal, you want to go for the laughter. We also think of it as like a limbic tackle. So there can be roughhousing as part of it. Again, it's kind of this play between when you're leading and when you're following. So it's not that you're just constantly following, but depending on your child and what they feel comfortable with, you know, you sometimes might go for them on what we call in hand-in-hand parenting the vigorous snuggle. So you, oh, you little cheater, I'm going to get you and turn you upside down, and then they laugh and laugh and laugh and then pretend to push you over and you fall down and make a big deal of it and then start again. So we think of it as the limbic tackle, and there's been a lot of really good studies about the benefits of roughhousing with kids lately. Yeah, especially for attention and ADHD. They found that allowing roughhousing can help kids to start to modulate impulses and impulse control, because you're in the moment of, oh, honey, I can't let you hit the, do pillow fighting, can't let you hit the pillow on my head. Let's try it again. Just neck down. Okay, I'm gonna get you. Oh, you got me. And then again, they hit you in the head. Oh, let's freeze. Hang on. Just on my body. So they're learning in the moment physical impulse control and connection, and getting a lot of sensory input. So roughhousing can be a part of play listening. Again, as long as the child is the one who gets the upper hand in the end. So some common play listening games to work on specific fears and feelings are Don't Leave Me. So if your child is one who has separation anxiety and they don't want to be left, you can reverse that, you know. So you're at home playing or eating and you just pick it up when you have a whim and you're feeling a little bit playful. Grab onto their leg, no, please don't leave me, don't go. And kids will love, they usually hop on this right away. Nope, I'm going. And then you dramatically, like, think of like a Shakespearean play, no, they left me. You're back. So it helps them work on those feelings of fear and sadness and separation through connection and laughter. Another good one is A Million Kisses, which works on the desire for affection but also for separation. So we all have a desire to both be close and have some space. And so someone was saying that their kid kind of pushes them away. I can't remember who it was, but A Million Kisses can be a good one. So, oh, I'm going to get you with a million kisses. I just love you so much. And then they run away and you get them or you almost get them. And you don't have to be over the top. You can kind of modulate your play so they don't get totally overstimulated. You can be, I'm going to get you, and go very, very slow towards them and let them get the one with the upper hand and laugh about it. The Officious Adult is a good one where you kind of mock yourself in a way, I am in charge here and I said eat your pee, and then they throw their pee off. Oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that, and you act completely shocked. So this officious adult role sometimes, and kids really know the difference between when you're playing and you're not playing, and they'll ask for it. And if it's not a play moment, you just say, oh, we're not playing that game right now. I actually really do need you to eat your pee, and go into stay listening if they get upset about it. But letting them laugh about it and be the one in control is really helpful. Sitting duck is a good one that works on sort of surprise and confusion, where you're maybe sitting somewhere and you say, oh, I'm doing some hard work. I sure hope nobody throws dirty socks at me. You're just a sitting duck, and kids will take this up usually in a second. Oh my God, where did those? And then you say, where did those come from? You take on that surprise and confusion. Oh, I hope nobody, takes this reading paper out of my hand, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And where did that go? What happened? So, working on surprise in that way is fun. I'll say one more and then I'll go for questions. And another way to sort of work with play listening in a heated moment is to actually use it as a way to invite their big feelings. So if your child is having a tantrum, And this is from a book called, it's a book I have at my exhibitor table downstairs. I think it's I don't want to, why do I have to? Something like, what if I don't want to? And it's a hardcover book that's great for little kids and a little bit older kids alike. And so in it talks about that if your child is having a big emotion, you know, in this example, the child didn't want to go to bed, starting to get upset about it, and so the dad said, oh, why don't you put your feet against the wall and push on me until those feelings aren't so strong. And so the child would push on the dad, you know, push against the wall and push on the dad's back, and the dad would match strength, but then let the child get the upper hand. Oh no, you're not going to win, you're not going to win, and then fall over. Oh, you got me again. And that not only helps them to address like sensory input and deep pressure from a body perspective, but it allows them to deal with these big feelings in a somatic way. So the anger is coming out through this like pushing, you know, so it allows the body to heat up and allows that emotional healing process from the limbic system. Also in relationship with another person, so getting to have these big feelings and work through them with somebody. And to transform feelings of powerlessness and helplessness into feelings of laughter, connection, and power. So we just have about 5 minutes, and I'd love to hear a few questions that you all have. Yes?
No and rejection. I mean, these are difficult concepts we don't understand, so what's the best tool? Stay listening. This doesn't work for that. I want you to know you can have it. And how do you deal with this form of rejection, and how do you get them to learn to deal with it?
What do you mean rejection? I'm a little confused.
Well,
rejection?
No, you can't have it. It's rejected, or you can't do this.
Mm-hmm. So when you say no, then they feel rejected.
Of course, because you're not listening to them, and you're not getting
Yeah.
you're not doing what they wish.
Yeah, so two possible ways to work on it would be when you say no, to just let their feelings come up in the way that they come up. Maybe they get mad, or you never let me do anything, and you just listen. And, you know, that makes sense. You just say something like, that makes sense. I hear you, and I can't let you have this thing right now. The answer is no. But also using play listening, so giving them times where they're the one in charge. And they're the one who gets to say no to you.
Happens a lot at the store when you want something and,
Yeah.
and you go to you public tantrum.
Yes. Yeah. It can happen a lot. Okay, thank you. Any other questions? So one more question, and then I will do one quick thing.
Public tantrums, we also run away.
Yeah, definitely. So public tantrums cannot be running away. Yeah, and that's one of the hardest ones to deal with, because you just have, where do they go? You have to run after them and grab them. Yeah. And so using play listening at home, where they run away and you don't catch them, or you almost catch them. You know, oh, they ran away from me again. You're so fast. Oh man, I hope this doesn't happen in the store again. You know, or I'm going to run away from you, and let them catch you immediately. That can be a way to work on it ahead of time. With the tantrum in public places, you know, what I say is be brave. Do what you know is good parenting. No one gets to decide if you're a good parent. If people are giving you dirty looks, I know it's hard to deal with, but you know, just remind yourself, I'm a good parent, I'm doing the best I can. There are some people looking at me, sending me love, and I'm just going to be brave and do what I know that I need to do. But also take care of yourself. And if it's not the moment for you to lean in and do stay listening, grab your child and leave the store and listen in the car.
Because I'm trying to get him to come back to me.
Yeah.
Then he thinks it's, oh, it's playing, you're following me.
Yeah.
I'm running away from you. This is not the place. This is not the park. Yeah, I'm going to do that here.
Yeah.
We just kind of started doing that too. That's 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's hard. These things take time to work on. So what I'd love to do is I want to give you guys just 2 minutes to find a partner, and you're just going to take 1 minute each. 1 minute where you're just going to talk about what are the things that you're taking away from this workshop. Okay, so find a partner, I'll set the timer, one person will speak for 1 minute about what you're taking away from the workshop.